Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well and welcome to today's creepypasta video. So in this video I'm going to be covering a creepypasta that is literally just called She. So this one, the tags are beings and entities, myths and legends, strange and unexplained, monsters, otherworldly, weird. So this one sounds like it could be quite an interesting one. So it sounds like there could be some strange goings on. But anyway, without further ado, let's get crack-a-lacking and dive into She. So she hated taking a dog out in the rain. Max would always spend 5 minutes sniffing around aimlessly before finally deciding on a place to piss, and would then spend another 5 deciding whether or not he would grace the earth with one of his lumpy turds. The dog wasn't hers, it had belonged to her boyfriend, but when said boyfriend had jumped ship for her sister's bed, he disappeared with a drive that she hadn't seen in him before. All that was left behind was a pile of his own dirty laundry, a brief note that said sorry, all in lowercase unsigned, and old Max. So that's a bit of a dick move so far. You can understand why she's in a bit of a mood. I mean, if I inherited a dog, I'd be very happy, but that's just because, I'm an animal lover, I guess, and I love pets and stuff. Love cats and dogs, you can't go wrong. But anyway, let's hear a bit more about Max. So, Max was something between a German Shepherd and a Lab. A mix that her ex had bafflingly described as purebred whenever anyone asked about his breed. The dog had an iron bladder, only going out once in the morning, once at dinner, and once again before bed. It was nearly midnight now, and Max was whimpering once more. She sighed before grabbing the leash and leading the dog out into the damp summer air. It wasn't raining nearly as bad as before, but she still avoided walking on the grass as much as she could with Max yanking the leash. She took the stone walk that went straight out from the house toward the street, glancing up at the sound of squirrels chattering in the line of red cedars that stretched out from one end of the house to the sidewalk. They were being noisy tonight, and cars were cawing too, making a racket of the otherwise silent suburban night. Max kicked up a leg and launched a torrent of piss onto the lawn. Once finished, he stretched, kicked up grass, and started sniffing around for a worthy shitting ground. "Come on," she said, sipping a sweater against the misty air. There were no cars out. Not that it was a busy street. The duplex she rented out was right on the edge of the suburbs, with the backyard facing uncleared woods and the front yard facing the distant glow of the city. Still, she thought it was strange that nobody had passed by in the last hour or so. Max yanked the leash, pulling her further towards the street. "Hurry up," she said, losing patience. A rumbling came from the direction of the woods, made her glance back over her shoulder. Thunderstorm. Great. Max, come on, make it quick. The last thing she wanted was to get soaked and have to change again. I mean, fair play. I wouldn't want to really be out in the thunderstorm, even if it is in your local area. And there's already strange going, well, I wouldn't quite say it's strange going on, but a bit more unusual if there's no one about. I mean, yeah, okay, it was before midnight and not, there's not gotta be like loads of people out, but it's weird that no one was out in the last hour. Very strange, but anyway, let's carry on. Another thunder noise sounded, sending a slight shake through the air. She turned to face the house again, staring up at the black, clouded night sky beyond. With the door light on, it was hard to tell, but she thought she could see the outline of trees moving in the backyard above the house. The wind must be picking up. A moment later, she noticed the lights go out in a duplex neighbour's window. That was odd. They were normally up half the night. Max had finally dragged her to the edge of the road, and she was insistent on crossing to the other side. She was about to yank him back towards the house when another rumble, louder than before, sent him running, ripping the leash out of her hand. "Max!" she shouted, stumbling to try and grab the leash again. But it was too late. Max was running across the street, and there was nothing she could do but chase after him. Luckily, he stopped under the street lamp on the other side and squatted. The sudden trot seemed to have loosened his bells. It's one way to get you going, isn't it? You heard it here first, guys. If you're a bit constipated, go for a run. It'll help loosen your bells. That was quite funny. One second, let me just have some water. My mouth's gone a bit dry. Bear with my character is gonna hate this. And I'm back. Right. That's one thing you're gonna get in these videos, guys. I like to have the raw authenticity I know I just totally butchered that, but at least you know that, you know, what you see is what you get with me. And I know it's not going to be perfect, but let's face it, I'm the tiniest YouTube channel going, and you know, there's a certain bit of charm, and you know, I'm more natural. Well, but anyway, let's carry on. So, Jesus, Max, she scolded, grabbing the leash back up as the dog's tail bobbed up and down. As she was catching her breath, she noticed the squirrels, 3 of them, running across the street from the cedar hedge and bounding off into the suburbs. Movement caught her eye above, and she glanced again over the roof of the house at the trees beyond. A shadow loomed over the duplex by about 30 feet. 2 pale grey eyes were visible, peering in her direction from a bulbous head the size of a car. It stood completely still. Wow, that ain't normal. Anyway, let's see what this creature is. Her breath left her lungs in a sigh. Ah, she watched as the looming creature appeared at her from the shadows. I see you there, she shouted at the thing. It responded with a lazy blink and remained motionless. Fantastic, she muttered under her breath, yanking the leash and forcing Max to cut off his last turd and run to her side. She crossed the street and headed up the walk, flipping the bird to the giant in the backyard before going inside. I love the devil's sass that she's got going on. I love it, I respect it. Anyway, yes or no, she said into the telephone. Just tell me, how fast can you have it dealt with? Ever since what happened out on the coast a year ago, these damn things keep showing up and parking themselves. Sorry about that, guys. And parking themselves in the most inconvenient places. At first, the world responded with panic and fear, but after months of passivity and inaction, the creatures were labelled truthfully as a hassle more than anything else. They still scare the kids with their gaping toothless mouths and cloudy eyes, but nobody had ever been killed or even hurt by one, so there was no reason to fear. She thought of them like cows that wander onto roads and block traffic, annoying, slow, and only real danger if you run into it with your car. They had the stature of a man, but with heads far too large for their bodies. Their arms were shrunken and curled lamely, like plucked chicken wings at their sides, occasionally clawing at the air but appearing to serve no real purpose. So that's why she was flipping it off and stuff then. And why she was just like a bit chill about it, because like, I'm not being funny or anything, but if I saw a creature with the head of the size of a car staring at me when I'm out at like midnight walking my dog and a storm was on the way, I would be buzzing it out of there. I would not be flipping it off or even entertaining the idea of interacting with it. I would be gone. But anyway, the disposal unit will be there by the morning, but until then she'd have to settle with the thing planting itself in the backyard, staring in her damn window and stinking the place up. That was the thing she hated the most about them, the smell. It was a sickly sweet smell, like that of overripe fruit or compost that had gone to mould. The smell was the worst. That and those eyes that stared blankly like points of fog. Don't know what's wrong with that. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, offering no emotion, no incentive, no shame. She thought of the eyes of blind people in films. Although she had no reason to believe the things were blind, one thing that was for certain: looking into those blank grey eyes filled children with fear and adults with hatred and rage. Bearing that emotional reaction is what led to the way society had agreed to deal with the creatures. She thought about it as she turned out the lights and climbed into bed, her face glowing in the saturated blue of her device. In the morning, the officials from the Blackwood Containment and Refinement Office, or BCRO for short, would be by to contain and refine the giant. They'd harpoon and restrain it. Then they would saw through the ankles where its lower tendrils had anchored it to the ground. It would fall slowly, dumbly, making those hellish screaming sounds as they severed its various limbs and extensions, coated its greasy, barrel-shaped torso, and finally ran each of the trunks through a piece of machinery similar to a wood chipper. The pulp would then be collected in the back of a marked BCRO tanker truck and shipped off to the facility, which was just outside the town for further refinement. Man, that's a bit brutal. Like, I know that they're a bit of a nuisance and stuff, but like that just seems a bit hardcore to me. no, I would not be happy with that, especially if you can leave it like basically screaming. Like, nah, I would not be happy with that. I'll just let it chill then, just be creepy and just stare at me. Like, why not? Like what you see. Anyway, let's carry on. She finally put her phone away and lay in the gloom of her bedroom, leaning sideways so that she could stare into the thing's eyes from a comfortable position. She could feel a silent, passionate rage filling her whole body as her eyes connected with the giant's, but she didn't look away. She kept staring until about 3 in the morning. She fell asleep with her clothes and bedsheets soaked in sweat. With the phone off, the only light in the room was a dull red glow that came from the digital alarm clock on the bedside table. The alarm clock was powered, like everything else in the house, her neighbours' houses and every other house in the town, primarily by the potent, low-emission and remarkably long-burning oils extracted from the brain and tissues of those silent giants like the one in her backyard. Her alarm woke her at 6, and she sat on the front step until 8, waiting for the BCRO crew to show up. The smell of exhaust and coffee was strong in the air as a crew of 20 men stood around running equipment and dismantling the giant. They handed her the usual $1,000 check as finder's fee, taking care to mention how lucky she was that they seemed to keep showing up in the backyard. Yes, she replied. When the foreman asked if it was indeed the third one this week, yes it is, she frowned, feigning frustration at the noise. So that's quite interesting how this sort of like, I'm guessing it's like a futuristic sort of place, is all powered by these random giants that they find as being a nuisance. And they give you money for finding them. Like, that is insane. Anyway, the money was good, sure, but it was nothing compared to the joy she felt in listening to those creatures crying out in agony with tongues that spoke no sensible words. Their screaming and squealing and howling as saws ripped flesh and grinders ate through bones sent ripples of ecstasy flowing through her body, and she excused herself from the backyard, heading inside to where she could hide just out of sight and enjoy the sounds from there. In all, it took the crew about 2 hours. They had gotten disappointingly efficient at this by now, and by the time they left she was exhausted from the sensations she had enjoyed. She's thinking sadistic. I don't know about you guys, but I think she's quite sadistic. Anyway, shaking and giddy with pleasure, she walked out into the backyard. The crew had done a good job cleaning up the mess, but there were a few remnants of gore left behind as usual. She gathered these up methodically and took them to the above-ground swimming pool, which was covered up and unused despite the punishing humidity. Checking to make sure her neighbours weren't outside and watching, she unfastened a section of the pool cover and tossed all the chunks inside, except for one. The gobs of flesh landed with a thick flop into the stinking wanting pool of gore and fluid, and she smiled as she refastened the cover, taking the remaining chunk inside. Here, Max, she said, listening sharply, and watched as the so-called purebred went into the kitchen, breakfast ready. She dropped the hunk of meat into his bowl, and Max tore into it. The dog's usually docile face erupted in a flash of teeth and splatter as he ate ravenously at the strange flesh. "Good boy," she whispered. Yes, she supposed that soon the neighbours would get sick of the smell coming from her pool outside, but she had started to think that it wasn't really necessarily to have it there anyway. The creatures had only started showing up this frequently since Max had started eating their flesh and crapping it out on the lawn. Something about the digestion, she supposed. She didn't know, not really, but clearly it was working. A few hours later, Max was whimpering to go outside for his middle of the day bathroom break. It had begun to rain again, and so she muttered under her breath as she clipped on the leash and led him outside. Yes, she hated taking a dog outside in the rain, but it was necessary. And that is the end of that creepypasta. So I feel like it kind of ended a bit abruptly. It didn't really tell you much about the monsters. And she is like sadistic as fuck. Like, I think the real monster in this creepypasta is the main character. I'm not sure her name. We didn't actually say her name, did it? But yeah. Anyway, the character that we just know as she. I feel like she is a real monster in this, compared to the monsters that end up pairing this place wherever it is. and you know she enjoys listening to him being tortured and killed basically in a garden, and then feeds him to a dog to trap more. Like, that is just insane, that is. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you think. You can let me know in the comments below. And if you have any suggestions for any future videos, be it creepypasta related or just something really random, let me know. You can let me know in the comments below, or you can reach out to me over on my socials, which I'll leave linked in the description below. And as always, I'll leave a link to this creepypasta in the description below as well. And you can always drop me an email. My email's in my YouTube bio. And with all that being said, I'll see you all in the next one.